on the environmental program work since we were here last time. Safety, well, we continue to do really well. I've talked to you about any accidents that we've had. As we wrote this slide, we'd gone 141 days without a recordable injury. Last week we did have a injury in our 3706 project, and what happened is we had a worker that was basically carrying a laundry bag of laundry, about 20 pounds. He lifted that laundry bag up to put onto basically a goat cart to take that away, and he felt a pop in his knee. Immediately he reported that. We got some first aid treatment of some ice on. He went to see his doctor that day or early the next day. They put a restriction on him being able to walk and normally do his job like he'd been doing. So we took that restriction, resulted in a recordable injury. So that's what happened on that. That's the only recordable we've had since we were here last time. The guy's doing okay. He's getting better. The swelling's gone down on the knee. So that's all good news. But we did have to record that under OSHA rules. Also, just to note, I'm a huge advocate of worker-involved safety. I can't be the one up there preaching safety and listing out all the rules. I need people to be involved in that, to take accountability for their own safety, to take accountability for their coworkers' safety, to really become involved and engaged. We do that through what's called a worker safety and security team. These guys they're kind of a self-governing unit, but their focus is on safety improvements and keeping each other safe. At the laboratory, we do what are called Distinguished Performance Awards. There's around a dozen of those awards across the 10,000 workers or numerous teams that are doing work at the laboratory. And one of our worker safety and security teams, with the focus that I just talked about, won one of those distinguished awards for last year. That's really fantastic, but it's really kind of testament to we're doing the right thing, and I think our safety record in the work we're doing also shows the same. So how are we doing on the transuranic waste? So as I put this slide together to come talk to you of the 3,706 cubic meters that were signed up to get out the door, we're now at 3,111, and yesterday we shipped a couple more, so we're at 3,713, not counting today's shipment. A little less than 600 cubic meters remaining. We're just finishing up remediation. So as one of the things we have to do in getting waste to WIP is we have to open all the boxes and drums. We have to inspect the waste. We have to characterize the waste. We have to get any prohibited items out of the waste. We started with 4,495 containers. To complete remediation, we're down to roughly 130 drums left to go, and 14 boxes as the start of this week. So we look to finish that work up early in March. We'll finish up the characterization, the certification of waste. We'll put electronically together all the remaining shipments that have to go to WIP. And as WIP comes online after their maintenance outage the middle of March, we're going to campaign this waste off Los Alamos. So we expect to finish up before the end of June, have this project done and behind us, and looking on to the next things that we have to do for environmental cleanup at the laboratory. So we're in the home stretch, so to speak, and although things are looking good, we haven't let up any effort. We're continuing to work our around-the-clock operations like I've talked to you guys about. As WIP comes back online, we'll be doing up to 10 shipments a week. That's the most we've ever done out of Los Alamos. We're going to beef up our shipping crews to be able to do that and finish this out. So we've got the support of WIP. Joe Franco is front and center and has said that he'll give us as many shipments as we need to make this complete. So that's all good news. The below-grade waste retrieval, Doug asked the question a little bit about this earlier, but we are preparing to do this. There are 158 corrugated metal pipes, about 30 inches in diameter. Each one's about 20 feet long. They're stored in really shallow land storage in Pit 29 in Area G. We've got a team that's formed and working on the remediation process. What we're looking to do is basically excavate the pipes, basically put them in a cradle or a conveyance device, take them over to our 375 facility. We're installing what's called a diamond wire saw in that facility. We're looking to cut each one of these into a chunk that'll fit into a standard waste box, and that'll be what we end up shipping to WIP. So we're expecting to begin the retrieval of these late this summer, and we'd like to get all of them or most of them out of the ground before freezing conditions, so we can go to work in the 375 facility in cutting these up and getting them ready to ship to WIP. So that's the first step. These are probably the easiest piece of waste. If you look at the pits, the trenches, the shafts, things like that, the way we like to work is kind of tackle that, learn as much as we can, and then move to the next harder thing. So that's why we're starting. That's why we're starting with these. The corrective actions program, we had a successful year, and we're even looking for bigger and better things going into this year. The flood recovery assessment, so the flood that we had in September with the 7 to 8 inches of rain during that week, we have completed an assessment of that. We've put in place basically corrections for a lot of the roads that got washed out or nearly washed out, so we've been doing all of that work. We've been looking at all the canyons. We've been looking at the migration of sediments. We're just set to launch, or we have launched, a sampling campaign, an enhanced sampling campaign, looking at kind of recharacterization based upon sediment changes. So we'll see if there's been any migration of contaminants that was due to this flood. So there's quite a bit of work that's still going on in that. We pumped water at in R21, R42, before that, up until the freezing season. So we've got all that data. Danny Katzman and his band of scientists have been looking at that data. We're working with the state of New Mexico for the next step as an interim action for the chromium contamination in Martin-Dad Canyon. We'll be putting that into place this summer and proceeding along to final CME on that project. We completed the Sandia Canyon grade control structure, basically in-place tiered structure that slows down the migration of water and eases the degradation of the wetland in Sandia Canyon. We got that done just before the floods hit. We took some damage on it because of the floods, but I'll tell you one thing, we probably would have lost that wetland if we hadn't got this grade control structure in place. It basically saved that, which to us was a really big deal because we think quite a bit of the chromium's tied up still into that wetland. So that was a good thing. Completed our first quarter this year of our groundwater sampling, and to date submitted 40 of our consent order deliverables on time or ahead of schedule. I think that's it.
So I'd like to talk a little bit about the FY14 budget and share with you some thoughts about it. Just by way of background, let's go back to 13 for a minute. The President's budget request for doing environmental cleanup work at Los Alamos was $239 million. We found ourselves in a continuing resolution and then a sequestration on top of that, and when the dust settled, we were down to $173 million. We got bumped back up with a $40 million reprogramming, which was pretty amazing, and I'm still amazed that happened. And it was roughly $20 million on the EM side and $20 million on the NNSA side of the House. And if I'm doing the math correctly, 40 million plus 173 million would be about 213 million. is what we wound up at the end of the day working with in FY13. For FY14, the President requested $220 million, and Christmas came a little late this year, but we not only got the President's budget, but we got a $5 million plus up on that for $225 million. Briefly, by comparison, the Office of Environmental Management got about a $200 million plus up from what was anticipated. The total EM budget is $5.8 billion across the complex. And what I think this is attributable to, in part, is that the appropriators recognized that both the EM complex in general and LANL specifically is a sound investment, and it's a good investment. And there are a lot of contributing factors, I think, to that. One is the work that Jeff and his staff has done on the 3706 campaign. Another is that groups like this board, like the Regional Coalition, the congressional delegation, the governor's office, local elected officials, state legislators. I'm trying not to leave anybody out. Citizens groups, community groups, Scott Kovacs, particularly by name, Jay Coughlin. And I'm saying this with a smile on my face because I really believe it's true. Everybody got behind the 3706 campaign. Everybody thought it was a good idea, supported it, and you know, through the lapse in appropriation, through every other obstacle that got thrown in front of Jeff and his staff, I'm cautiously confident that we're going to deliver on it. And it's that kind of support and results that I think resulted in the appropriation that we saw as a cleanup budget here in the omnibus legislation. So very pleased with it, and the credit really goes not to people in this room and to a lot of other folks, not to the Department of Energy per se. A little look ahead at the 15 budget. The pass-back has been received by headquarters, which means that headquarters gets to look at the number and do whatever magic it does. I don't know if it's chicken bones in the microwave or whatever, but ultimately it goes back, and the President will announce the budget in early March of 2014. Usually it happens in February. Last year it happened a lot later, but they're anticipating that the President will announce the budget in early March, and the status of that budget is embargoed, which is code for me not being knowledgeable about it, and if I was and I said anything about it, bad things would happen to me. So stay tuned, but early March we'll know what it's looking like for 15. I think I have just maybe one more slide, and I hope you all can see this. What we've done is we've plotted the presidential requests each fiscal year in blue, going back to 2005, and this is 2014, and the enacted budgets in maroon or brown, and then the percent difference between what was enacted and what was requested. I think that's what that is. Variance of EPO versus enacted. So I'd like to turn your attention to this part of the graph here, because you can see, in general, the President's request has been going up. And in general, what we've gotten and it's been enacted is going in the opposite direction. But this year, even though the President's budget was down a little, we've seen an increase in our appropriation, which we really haven't seen since 2008, 2009. And the level that we're at now, and I'm not, you know, I haven't included I don't think I've included the reprogramming and the Recovery Act, because I don't see another Recovery Act, Stimulus Act coming in the near future. So what I'm suggesting is that this trend here is caused by Jeff's group and the laboratory achieving results, getting cleanups done on budget, on schedule, and LANL being viewed from a legacy cleanup perspective as a good investment. Now, one question I've gotten asked is, if I project it out to, 15, 16, and 17, is this going to look like this? And a year or two from now, we're going to say, gosh, you remember that meeting we had at the lodge when we talked about the floor? Those were the good old days, weren't it? I'm hoping that's not the case, but it's certainly possible, or it's possible that we're going to get up here and plateau out, or it's possible that we'll keep going. I don't know, but if the thought is that this increase was in fact due to what I'm suggesting is the delivery, the bias for action, getting that 3706 campaign delivered, looking at the highest risk work at the laboratory, getting support from everyone. Yep, that's what we need to do, getting behind it, doing it and delivering it, completing it and moving forward. If that is the recipe for success moving forward and the model for success moving forward, I want to be able to try and capitalize on that as I move forward with Jeff on planning the additional work, on sequencing the additional work, and on executing the additional work. So that's, Mr. Chairman, what I wanted to say about the budget. And as soon as the 15 numbers are out and we can speak about them, I'd love to come back and tell you what that looks like.